Well, hi, this is Donna Blevins, the big girl of poker, and this is Women's Poker Association third Thursday Talks. And we're on hold waiting for Kelly Minkin, but I want to use this opportunity to check in with all of you that are here. And I'd like for you to raise your hand if you would like to visit. I'll put on my coaching hat. And we'll do a bit of mindset coaching because people said that that's what they would like to hear about. So just go ahead and raise your hand if you're ready to come on and chat with me. Yeah. Poker is certainly a card game played by people, but it's most importantly a people game played with cards. And for me, poker is a respite. It's a break from something that might be serious or disruptive. It might be a physical ailment or a family health care challenge, or it might be any sort of stress that you have in your life. And since 1996, poker has been a therapy for me. I actually do a poker therapy program with veterans at the VA hospital in Tampa. And I see Kelly has jumped on. Fantastic.
Donna, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, I don't have a headset on, so I'm going to switch it really quickly.
Okay.
Can you hear me better now?
Oh, it's perfect.
Okay. It took me a little while to figure out how to get everything working, but we're in business now.
That's wonderful. Are you comfortable if you turn the computer back to where you had it? Because then the background we can see.
Is that like that?
Yeah, turn it back to your left. Yes. Oh, that's lovely. If you can find a place to sit that you're comfortable.
Yeah, let me get this squared away. Is that good?
That's wonderful.
Okay, good.
Kelly Minkin, welcome so much. This is the third Thursday Talks with Women's Poker Association. I'm so thrilled to have you on. I have to admit, I'm probably old enough to be your great-grandmother, and you are one of my sheroes.
Oh, thank you.
You are welcome. You are welcome. So tell us how you first got started playing poker.
So that's a funny story. I played when I grew up with my family, little home games for $20 and stuff like that. And then when I was in college, I decided to go to the casino a handful of times and really fell in love with the game. And then once I was in law school, I lived like 10 minutes away from the casino in Phoenix. And so then I started going more frequently and seeing results and then being more determined to become the best poker player I could.
Well, that's wonderful. And when did all that start?
So this was in like 2011 and 12 was when I first started like even going to the casino. I actually started playing poker, playing like 3-6 limit. I'd bring like $60 to the casino, and if I broke even, I was happy. I just really wanted to get the experience at that time. And then when I moved to no limit, $1, $2, I liked the game a lot more because there was a lot more creativity involved. So then at that point, I figured, okay, I'm going to take this more seriously and really hone and fine tune my skills in poker.
Well, then, if I share with you this story about how I first sat down at the poker table in 1996.
Wow.
It was at the Seminole Indian casinos that weren't casinos in those days. It was actually
right.
The bingo halls where they've put some card tables in the corner of their bingo halls. And it was 25-cent, 50-cent limit poker, and the pot froze at $10. That was after they.
I like that.
Well, that was after they took a rake of $2.50. So you can imagine, think about, yes, a 25% rake. So it was huge. There was no bluffing. And my intention, you were saying you started out with $60, and if you broke even, that was a win. And that's probably what I did, because I started out sitting down with $20 when I bought into this 25-cent, 50-cent game, and I would play for 2 hours as break from my real estate agency. And my intention was to learn to fold. And if I got up
I
with
like that.
if I got up with $20, then I figured I had been a winner.
Right. No, I like that. That's smart.
Well, I have to say that I'm going to share my favorite picture of you. And do you see the screen?
Oh, thank you.
Do you see the screen I'm
I,
sharing?
I I love that picture.
I do too. Oh, Wonder Woman. That's absolutely fabulous. I was
You
looking.
know what's so funny? A fan of mine made that for me, and I just fell in love with it. And I'm like, a lot of people akin me to a superhero because I'm a woman in poker, and I'm kind of paid, one of the women, just like Lonnie and Maria Ho and, Liv Bory, that are making it possible and a reality for a lot of other women to say, hey, I can do this. I can play poker and be successful. And that feels really good to like wear that proudly.
Yes, it certainly does. And another question is do you feel like the men are respectful of you playing at the poker table?
As time has progressed and I've gained some notoriety, the reactions and how people treat me at the table has changed. When I first started playing, I was in my early 20s and I already kind of look young. So it's easy for people, not necessarily just men, but people in general, to underestimate younger people in a field where experience is key to being good. And so I don't take it personally. And to get back to the main question, no, they used to not respect me and people never took me seriously. And that actually worked to my advantage because then, I was like hoodwinking people by actually being a talented poker player. And then, before you know it, I have all their money. So it's not the same anymore. I get a lot more respect now that people know who I am and I'm recognizable from TV. So it's a totally different spectrum now.
So I have to also share another screen with you, which is my second favorite photograph. And you're going to know which one this is, I'm sure.
Oh, I love this.
And I have to admit, I had to go find the video because I wanted to see how you had the guts and you had the tenacity to 5-bet 7-2.
Yeah.
So tell
I'm
us.
not going to lie to you, Donna. I've never done that before. We were in a cash game. It was all ladies, and we had all kind of talked before the game started and said, hey, let's make this game fun. Let's make it a little different. Let's, kind of trash talk. Let's make it interesting, more so entertainment as opposed to just playing regular poker. Because I had been on Poker Night in America, the ladies of night, a year ago. And I went into it saying that my goal is to make money. I'm going to play good. I want my fans to know, I took it a lot more seriously. And this year coming around, I really wanted to make it more entertaining and fun and just a good time. So we had come up with a couple different ideas, one of them being playing the 7-deuce game. So for each opponent or player that wins a hand with 7-deuce gets an extra $100 from every player at the table. Now, it's not so much the money that makes it exciting, more so like the glory, right? To say like, I did it, this is exciting, now pay me, each one of you. So, I got a little bit excited to be in this environment, and I know Lily is fairly active player, so I felt like she could be re-raising me with any two cards, honestly. So I didn't feel like it really mattered what I had. It just gave me more incentive to play the hand that way because it was against her.
Okay, so that was Lily Coletto.
Yes.
Is that how you say her name?
Uh-huh.
Lily Coletto. And I know that when you're doing something and you say, I'm going to take this to another level, that's really fabulous. So when you
Yeah.
first started playing, you said you were
Mhm.
working with the you took $60 and felt like you had been successful. When you left we're even, and that's absolutely the truth. And then you went to the 1-2 no limit, and then it stepped up. What did you
Mhm.
find that gave you a better edge because you were a woman?
I think that the edge you have as a woman in a male-dominated field is only limited to how talented you truly are. I think women that are exceptional in male-dominated fields really stand out, and even more so have an advantage against men because women tend to be underestimated in those scenarios. So I like personally to be underestimated. I like when I come to a table and people don't recognize me and they think, oh, I'm playing with my boyfriend's money. I get that all the time. Or I'm playing with my dad's money, or, whatever the case. I enjoy that because I love knowing that, one, that's not true, and two, I'm going to show you by beating you that I'm better than you. And my competitive nature feeds off of that. So I think that if you're a woman that's competitive, that's talented, you have, unlimited potential in that sense, that you can take it as far as you want to.
So what type of skills do you believe women have? I heard, first of all, that men might expect that you would be unsuccessful or not as talented because you're a woman. What else do you think might come into play for women?
I think that for poker specifically, I think women have a great sense of intuition that a lot of men just don't have. And that those gut feelings or the instinctual decision making and, body language, reading body language and micro expressions, I think women just automatically have a leg up on men in those aspects of poker. And I think that translates to other areas of life as well.
I think you're absolutely correct that it especially works in sales. It has, for me, of course, I had to figure out whether people were intimidated me because of my style or because I'm 6 feet 5 inches tall. I mean,
Are you?
that's why they call me the big girl of poker, Kelly.
I love that. I didn't know that about you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm 6'5", and my husband, who is one of the few people I look up to, is 5'3". So I'll let you know that. And
That's awesome.
he was the one that taught me how to play poker. And because in our real estate business, there was so much stress that we had in '96, and we were working 17 hours a day. And what I wanted more than anything else was some diversion. And when they put
Right.
the card tables and the bingo halls and at the Seminoles, I said, "Would you teach me how to play poker?" And he had one of those flashes, those tells when it flashes across somebody's face, and you know it. I know you read people all the time, especially in poker and in having been trained as an attorney. You read people's faces,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I could see the gears in his head going, "Oh, this is '96. Remember? Oh, it's a guy's game. It's. But then if she learns to play and likes it, then I'll be able to play more. So yeah, Donna, I'll teach you."
Right. Exactly.
And when we would go to a casino where nobody knew us, like the Horseshoe Casino in Tunica, Mississippi, that was one of the first places that I ever went and saw a real card room. He would be playing in a 20-40 limit hold'em game, and I was over piddling around in the lower limits, Omaha high-low, because that was my favorite. And they'd say, "Oh, who's that big girl over there?" He'd never say anything. So that's where my big girl of poker came from.
I love that. That's awesome.
Thank you. We have a question here, and please, you have a question, I want you to put it in the chat. In fact, I'm going to put chat here so you can see where that is. Sometimes people don't see where that is.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah, I want them to go ahead and do that. So please, you're on here, and I'd like for you to put your questions in. Yeah, and please do that. Hang on just a minute. Let me. Okay, so the question was, do you ever sell pieces of yourself for big tournaments?
Yes, I do sell pieces. I think it's really a good idea to minimize or hedge your losses, and you can sell pieces at a small markup and then, you know, play for less money of your own money, which I always think is smart. I tend to play the smaller tournaments on my own because my bankroll can afford the swings. But if I'm playing a $5,000 tournament or a $10,000 tournament, I tend to sell a little bit just to hedge that variance.
So how and where do you sell it?
So I have a lot of people who are interested in buying pieces. I tend to sell just to my friends and a few people that are within the community. I am open to selling other pieces to people I don't know. A lot of people will direct message me and ask for pieces, and I tend to try to respond to them and get people at least to have some action at some point. So for anyone who does want to buy a piece of me, feel free to write me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, and I'll get back to you with that information.
And explain to me how selling it with a small markup works, because I know that I understand that, having been in the mortgage industry and interest rates, but why don't you explain that, because it sometimes seems complicated to people.
Okay, so the way I sell pieces, and this is pretty common and standard in the industry, is that I'll sell a percent. So let's say I would decide to sell 30%. I tend to sell all my pieces between 20 and 30% markup. So unless it's sometimes in 10Ks that are pretty difficult, I'll sell for like 15 to 25% markup depending on the field, because those can be super difficult. And my edge isn't as great as when I'm playing a $500 tournament or $5,000 tournament when there's, 50-50 recreational player and professional. So it really depends on the field. So let's say it's a mixed bag of players and it's 50% pros and 50% amateurs. I'll sell for, let's say, 25%. So if someone bought 10% of a $5,000 tournament, they'd pay $500 plus $100 if I'm charging, or $150 if I'm charging 25% or 125. And so then they would pay that extra markup. That percentage is essentially paying me for my time, and then whatever I cash for, they would get 10% of that amount. So if they bought a piece of my $5,000 tournament at a markup, then when I cash for $20,000, they would get 5% of that $20,000.
So they get a percentage of the win. It doesn't have to say go back and pay them for what their investment was. It's just a percentage of the win.
Yes, but they inherently get their investment back because you're getting your buy-in back. So you get the money you invested minus the markup plus the return on your investment. So the only money, if I cash, that I'm profiting from is that little bit of markup, that 20%.
Okay, so you're saying that they do get back, with the cash, they do get back their initial investment, not the markup. They get back the initial investment, and then they get the percentage of the win. So you do pay the investment back first.
Yes, the investment inherently, when you cash, you get that money back plus the profit that's made total. Exactly.
That's a smart way to do it. I've seen the way that a lot of other people do it, and as I understand it, that's not the way they do it, and I really think that's an honorable way to do it, and I highly approve of that. So is there, other than friends, I've seen some places, some groups on Facebook where people are are saying they want to sell a piece of themselves. Is there a safe place that's a safe kind of sort of public place if somebody says they want to offer a piece of themselves?
Yeah, there's actually 2 websites currently that I'm aware of. One is pokershares.com, and the second one is Stake Kings, STAKE Kings. And they both offer a platform where professional poker players can sell pieces at a markup to the open community. So anyone can go on, make an account, and then buy pieces from those websites. And then the website, then if you win, they handle all the transactions. And they also are, I know that Stake Kings, I'm not sure about Poker Shares, will do the tax forms as well for you. So that's a nice perk.
Okay, so Stake Kings, let me share the screen here. So Stake Kings has Antario him, Esfandiaro.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Picture of that is, so I wonder if he was one that started it.
He's actually so I know the man who was one of the founders of this website. He's a good friend of mine, and Antonio is one of the sponsored pros, and I think he does have a large equity share, so he's inherently a partner and therefore loves promoting the site.
Okay, cool. Oh, and here people are asking for shares of something as simple as an $82 turbo. Well, how interesting.
Yes. So a lot of people will sell for packages online. I don't personally play online, but you can buy really small pieces, not even 1%, if you're looking to just have a fun sweat that helps you, interact with the poker community. This is a great way to do that.
Interesting. I had heard of them, but I hadn't really looked at it. And the other one is Poker Shares.
Yes, I believe so.
Let me search for that one again.
Yes.
Come on, load. But it is pokershares.com, and then it went over to Ian, so it's not wanting to load, but I don't want to. But thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course.
That's really important. I've toyed with the concept, but I wasn't sure how to do that. What other questions do you all have? Come on, I'm looking for some more questions. Just go ahead and put them in the chat. When did you know that you were a pro?
That's a good question that no one's ever asked me, actually. It's really hard in poker because you can be a winning player, so to speak, and not be a good player, and vice versa, right? You can have results in poker and still be making a lot of mistakes. You could just be on the plus side of variance. So it's really hard to be self-aware enough to be able to say, here were my weaknesses and here are my strengths. And when I get past, having so many weaknesses, that's when I become a professional. And for me, I think that when you become disciplined and you're able to make sound decisions and not be emotional in your decision-making process, that is what encompasses being a pro.
Oh, you just hit it right on the head, that's for sure. Because I know the biggest problem is that people don't understand the discipline and the work that you have to put into it. They think it's all, they think it's, well, they don't realize the work. And I think understanding what your strengths are and then what your challenges are, that's absolutely the fact. And I grabbed a screenshot from Hendon Mob showing you with your best live cash of $262,912. Where was that?
That was actually at the WPT in Fort Lauderdale. I final tabled the Lucky Hearts event in 2015 and ended up getting third for 262,000. So that was my best run in a big main event. I have won a live tournament before, but it was like a side event for $50,000 at LAPC like a month before this.
Wonderful, and it shows your live earnings. And I know Hendon Mob has always updated their sites fast, so it shows a million one. I'm really impressed. Let me tell you what.
Thank you.
What were some of your favorite memories from this summer's WSOP?
Well, I will say that one of my greatest memories from this summer was playing in the tag team event with Lonnie and our friend Haisha Zhang. She is a bracelet winner. She won the ladies event, I believe, in 2015. And just to have that camaraderie of not only friends, but women that are successful in poker. And we ended up final tabling the World Series event, which was my first WSOP final table. So that felt really great to just have that, teamwork the entire time, and to be able to accomplish something like that with someone, people that you are close to is really exceptional. I think that the tag team event at the World Series is a unique event that gives you that opportunity you wouldn't get otherwise.
That's so much fun. I love tag team events. Unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity to compete in many of them, but I've really liked them a lot.
It's a really cool and unique idea.
So what about the tag team? Would you suggest someone, is there a philosophy they can use in a tag team event, or something they might do or might not do?
It's difficult because there really isn't a lot of statistics or data we can use to make that determination, right? But if I were to just use the information I've, accumulated playing it a few times in the past few years that they've had this event, I would say it's important that all players in the team pay attention to the table dynamic, and that most players within the team play for long stretches of time. I think it's really hard when you're swapping players in and out to really get in that groove and the feeling like, you're set in and geared into that focus zone, So I think that each player should be playing at least, 3 to 5 hours before they switch, unless it's a bathroom break.
Well, my husband always said never pass up a chance to pee. And one of the things he taught me about competing in poker was that if you have the need, unless you happen to be at a final table, or unless it's a crisis situation with your chips, get up from the table and go take a personal break, even though it's not break time. Do you agree with that?
100%. I have always told, I coach as well. And I've always told my students and others that if you're feeling antsy, whether it be you have to go to the bathroom, you're not focused, you need to take a phone call, whatever it is, handle it so you can focus on the game, because it's not worth staying in your seat and then making mistakes because you're unfocused than just going to the bathroom and missing 2 or 3 hands. Miss the 2 or 3 hands every time. Unless you have like a really short stack in the tournament, then don't leave.
Yeah. Unless it is the crisis time.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I mean, inevitably, if I have the experience that I've had is if I go, oh, well, I'll just wait. It's almost like your subconscious slaps you in the face and says, okay, then we're just going to take your chips. Do you work out before a big tournament?
Typically no. I do like to work out, but I tend to avoid anything that disrupts or interferes with my sleep and my meditation and getting my mind ready, because that is more important to me than feeling physically good. I think in an ideal world, if I could sleep 8 hours and then work out and then take a shower and then get ready, there's not enough time in the day. So I try to prioritize what I've learned is best for me. And I think that is different for every person. I think some people would rather work out than spend the extra hour lounging in bed. For me, I'd rather wake up leisurely, take a shower, and take my time. When I feel rushed, I get anxiety. And when I get anxiety, I get stressed. And when I get stressed, I'm unfocused. So to avoid all those things, I don't work out. I tend to work out outside of the tournament time.
Well, as a mind shift coach, I absolutely believe in the mental game. Tell me about what type of meditation you do.
You know, I would say up until the past year or two, I was not able to meditate. I really didn't spend a lot of time doing it, but even just sitting in yoga for 2 minutes trying to just have a clear headspace was difficult for me. I kept finding my mind wandering, or I'd hear someone sniffle, or I'd feel like, a sweat drip on my back, whatever it was. I couldn't just relax. And I feel like the more you become self-aware, the easier, not saying it's easy, but the easier it becomes to relax and let go. So I tend to just listen to music. I have a little playlist that just doesn't have any words. It's just kind of sounds and vibrations. I also use Headspace, which helps me when I really can't get geared together, to have, someone walk you through that process. And it's really helped me to, when you walk away from that, you just feel like you've cleared the slate. It's fresh. You feel like you've let a lot of things that don't matter out of your headspace. And I feel like the decision-making process is so much easier when you get rid of the, knickknacks in your head.
I call it head trash.
Head trash. I like that.
Yeah, I call it, and in my book, Mind Shift on Demand, one of the chapters is toss the trash.
I like that.
And I said, there's no need to hold on to crap because you're not a septic tank.
Exactly. I like that a lot. I'm using that, Donna.
Go right ahead. I'll send you a PDF of my book, Mind Shift on Demand, so you can tell me what you think.
I would love that. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. One of the other attendees, Donna, said, my weakness and aggression, especially when men's actions seem bold and aggressive just because of femininity. Was there something that clicked about aggression that made you feel more confident against men?
I think this is really personality dependent, right? I think that I, outside of poker, am a aggressive, confrontational, head-on person. I'm very direct. And so when I'm faced with that same energy, I'm comfortable in that space. So when when I'm at a table and men are playing aggressively towards me, I'm 100% okay with that. If anything, I enjoy that because it leaves me in a spot where I can use all the information that they're giving me to make a decision, as opposed to giving others information by me being the aggressor and letting them, analyze what I'm giving. So, I think it's easy for me to say, well, I like, being in these spots that are high pressure, when a lot of people aren't comfortable in that space. And I think that, spending so much time playing poker, I can align my aggressiveness with my self-confidence. And I feel like as a woman, if you can work on your self-confidence, you're more comfortable in that aggression space in poker, because you really have to be confident in your decision-making process to be comfortable in that zone. Otherwise, it's a lot easier to just check or fold or make a small bet or not really put pressure on others or be okay with others putting pressure on you.
I agree with 100%. That's you have to take a stand and stop being someone that, people talk about being bullied. And I believe that what happens with bullying is that we step into a victim mindset. I had people first say, oh, I'm a woman and they're just bullying me. No, they're not bullying you. You just happen to be a player at the table. I don't think it matters who you are. But if you show any physical weakness in relationship to the way you sit or your body style, I was taking pictures a few years ago when I was, whenever I had media pass and I could take pictures during tournaments. What I was doing is I was picking up pictures of women at the table, and what I was finding, sadly, was how much women's body language said they felt weak at the table. Tell me what you see. What does it look like when you believe someone is weak at the table? What's their body style?
Yeah, I think that's a great observation in that women tend to read differently than men. Not all women per se. I don't know why my screen just went black. Sorry, guys. There we go. So I think that a lot of women tend to cross their arms, or they'll, tense up, or they want to, wrap their sweater around their body. And honestly, I do that too, but I do that just because it's freezing in the tournament room, like it's easy for me to look weak, but again, that I don't care if I look weak because I'm not. So if someone misreads how I look because of my body language, I love that. I want them to think I'm weak. But for most women in general, it's easy to take this like scared look because one, it's intimidating. Two, as women, I feel like we're raised to not puff our chests out in front of men. I think that's just not something we're taught is okay, to be aggressive with men or be confrontational with men. At least for me, I know that I was always raised to, not do that. And, as I've learned about myself and who I am as a person, I've realized that that's just not how I want to live my life. If I want to be treated as an equal, I have to think like an equal. So I think it all depends on your mindset as a woman. Are you coming to the table as an equal, or are you coming to the table as a woman in a man's world? Because when I come to the table, I'm showing up and I feel like I'm better than everyone, not because I'm a woman, but because I'm the best player at the table. And I don't care what my gender is. That's just the fact.
Well, hey, I applaud that attitude, that's for sure. One of the things that I did in 2007 in the main event at the World Series of Poker, that was my best cash, and I was able to win my best cash to date. I was able to win my entry online full tilt, a $216 satellite. I was able,
nice.
win 12,000, two to travel, and 10,000 to buy in. And I went through a period of time of changing my bio clock, because since I live in Florida as well, if I didn't change my bio clock to Las Vegas time, it really, you're more tired the later it gets. And
Right.
so I would start getting up later and getting up later and getting up later. And then each day before I came in, I had one of my tribe, one of my cousins said, hey, I'm going to pull up the name of the people that are going to be at your table and get you a list of who they are and what they've done. So I just went to the table early, about 20 minutes. And when they came, I would welcome them to my table by name.
That's amazing. I may have to take that one too, Donna. You have so many good moves.
Well, you're welcome to do that. I like that. Yeah, it was astonishing, actually, and it probably half the people were startled at it, and I would do things like ask them, how their kid was doing at school or something by name, and
I love that. You did your recon. They're probably like, oh my God, who is this hit woman that's at our table? Literally.
Yeah, and that was, that I know people are actually doing that a lot more today. A question here, and I could, I've got an answer for this question, but I want to hear yours. Are you ever seriously card dead for a whole tournament?
Yes, I've been seriously card dead for a whole tournament. And typically when you spend hours being card dead, you don't last very long. So whole tournament being maybe 7 hours, but that's still a long time. You know, I've had grueling days where you're like, is this a real life situation for me, or is God playing a trick on me? I'm not sure. But yes, it's happened to me more than once.
Yeah, absolutely. Because before I would ever sit down at the table, you know, now mind you, I never started playing poker until I was in my late 40s, and I did not
Wow.
know what beat what. And I'm such a perfectionist in business that I wanted to be sure I knew what to do. And so I told my husband, we're gonna deal out a lot of hands at the kitchen table, at the dining table before I go. And I actually, to keep a record of it, we dealt out about 50,000 hands before I ever sat down at the table. Yeah,
Wow.
your mouth is open, but it's not that
Yeah,
many.
that's
It's really not that many, because now with my coaching clients, uh, one of the things that I do every year, even though I don't have a lot of table time, is I'll go through a process of dealing out 1,000 hands. And when I say 1,000 hands, I'm going to deal out hold'em. So in one deal, I'm going to have 10 hands, and I'm going to
right.
keep a record of the hands and a record of how many starting hands there are, and I move the dealer button around and what I might do. And it was astonishing to me what I discovered in that long deal. And it didn't take long. It took about 3 weeks, not 3 weeks setting down to do it. But it was really good process of me seeing what potential cards were coming.
But I think to your point, Donna, is that, you know, it may not have been a lot of hands per se, but the fact that you had the discipline and the forethought to say, hey, let me deal out 50,000 hands, give myself some experience without actually having any money at risk, is already indicative that your mindset is paved to be successful in a game like poker, because you're already thinking ahead, and thinking ahead is how you are a winning poker player. You have to be able to think 1 or 2 or 3 steps ahead of your opponent. So to have that, you know, I've never heard someone say, oh, well, I never touched, you know, any cards in the casino until I dealt myself 50,000 hands and didn't have any money at risk. Like, that's pretty cool.
Well, thank you. I like having my own cheering session there. There's a question here. What are your favorite games in poker, and do you like the big blind ante game?
So I only play Texas Hold'em, no limit. I don't dabble in anything else. I know a little bit of PLO, but my favorite game by far, hands down, obviously, is no limit Hold'em. What was the second part of the question?
Do you like the big blind ante game? The big blind ante?
Yeah. So I love the big blind ante. I think it makes the game go faster. I can be on my phone more without having to ante every single hand. It just streamlines the process. And I think it's easier for the dealers. The players like it. There are some disadvantages when you're in the big blind. Obviously, it's a big bet, but it all evens out because everyone has to be the big blind. So I think the pros vastly outweigh the cons, and I would be shocked if we don't see this becoming the standard in the next 5 years.
I highly approve of it. I competed in the Florida State Ladies Poker Championship up in Best Buy this past weekend. When Lupe Soto was there. Hello, Lupe. I see you here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it was the first time that I had experienced that. I was looking forward to it, and I absolutely loved it. It was in 2 smaller tournaments, and it was fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. Of course, it's a little bit crippling when you've allowed your chips to leak away, and then it comes to that point when the blinds are higher. But you know, that's still it's still a great. I think it's a great asset to the game.
I agree.
What is the hardest lesson you've learned in poker?
Oh boy, I had been playing maybe a year or 2, and I was sitting next to a friend of mine playing 2-3 no limit. So the buy-in's $300, which was a lot for me at the time. I was still in law school. and we played a huge pot. There was at least like $1,500 in the middle, which is absurd. And I had a full house. I forget the exact hand, but I had a full house, and he had a full house. And he tabled his hand, and I picked my cards up and kind of showed him my hand, and then I mucked. And then maybe the next hand started being dealt out, and I realized I had a bigger full house and I had misread my hand. And the fact that I hadn't tabled my cards on the table meant that there was no way I could go back and say, that's my pot. I couldn't make a claim for, that pot was mine. So I was just kicking myself, and I thought, you know what, no matter what, even if I think that I'm losing, I'm going to table my hand. So at least if I realize I made a mistake, I can go back and say, hey, something was wrong. Because, if only your eyes are seeing it, then you can't go to the casino and say, hey, look at the cameras.
We're becoming each other's cheering section, because I agree with that 100%. Because, and I'm very protective when I table it. When I turn my cards over, there's going to be 2 of my fingers on those cards. The dealer wants to pull them. I said, wait a minute. Read it, and I want to be sure that I've read it correctly. And my favorite game is Pot Limit Omaha, although my bankroll isn't to the point where I can compete in the bigger games. But I'm telling you what, when you're dealing with Omaha, high and of course high-low, you absolutely want to protect your hand. But protecting your hand, turning it over, even if you've made an idiot move and you think you've lost, go ahead and table your hand, because we sometimes miss things. I mean, I remember the video of Phil Ivey having a pair of 8s, as I recall. I think he had red 8s, and he ended up the board 4 flushed, and it was red. And there was an ace on board, and somebody said they had the ace, and he threw his hand away without ever turning it over.
Yeah.
And then he realized later that he would have won the hand. And I know it's, you got to beat yourself up, but man, I think forgiveness is one of the most important things in our game, Kelly.
Yeah, you 100%. There's no reason to beat yourself up. I always tell my students, if you make a mistake, the worst thing you can do is not learn from the lesson. So don't, you're going to make mistakes. Even Phil Ivey, like you said, makes mistakes. It's a matter of learning from the mistake, taking that mistake, and not repeating it.
And how do you learn to think 2, 3 plus steps ahead of your opponent?
I think that comes down to just experience and putting in volume and knowing certain situations. And it's a learned process, right? You have to know not only what your opponent is thinking, but what he thinks you're thinking, and so on and so forth. Now, it's easy to give people too much credit or not enough credit. So I think that finding that sweet spot for every individual person can only come with experience and putting in hours into the actual game. That's not something that you can teach or learn without having that, putting in time into playing with other people. And I think slowly but surely, as you pay attention and you try to, methodically and logically break down why and what people are doing, it helps you inherently know their thought process maybe before they even realize their thought process.
As I said, we are each other's fan, because that's absolutely correct. And when I work with, I have a poker therapy program that I do with traumatic brain injury veterans at the VA hospital in Tampa. And I go there once a month. I'm a volunteer at the hospital. And one of the things I tell them is that you need to think of your game. Think of being the sniper. What does a sniper do? You're waiting and you're watching for opportunities rather than trying to you're being still and you're being in the moment. And it's the calmness that I bring to the table with them. And one of the things that I do that has helped my game, and that's what I say, that poker is my rest, but it's my therapy. Because
I love that.
Thank you. Because it gives me a place where all of a sudden nothing else exists except this universe at the table. I call poker
Right.
the great equalizer, where
I like that.
thank you. Everybody starts out the same. let me see if there's any more questions, and I'd like to share with everyone what we're going to be having next month. How do you handle a loud mouth who incessantly talks at the table?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually love being in that situation because I'm very witty and quick. So to have someone that's talking, it depends. If they're loud and they're excited and they're having fun, I like to play back and, engage in banter. But when it's someone who's annoying or rude, then I'm just waiting for an opportunity to make them feel really uncomfortable or call them out, and they tend to be quiet after I interact with them on that sense. I remember one time, he's really famous for being a loudmouth, is Alex Keating. He's actually a friend of mine, but he's very loud and uses this like obnoxious tactic to, get under people's skin at the table. So he would just be in a pot with someone and he would start berating them and just going like so verbally hard at them, like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Are you going to fold? And it just wouldn't even give that person a chance to even think for themselves. And I remember just saying, I made a few comments about him and he just was really quiet after that. So I feel like kind of a hero when I come to the table and I get people to behave, because I'm like, listen, the sheriff's in town, buddy. You better get it together or I'm going to give you a really hard time. So yeah, it's fun for me.
I love that. So tell me your takeaway today. What has been your most enjoyment here saying and chatting with us?
I love interacting with the women in poker. I think that it's a really small area that can grow with the right fertilizer, right? I think that women need to understand the concepts in poker, know that they can reach out to me or other professional players if they want advice, if they want to hear any more details about my life. I try to make myself accessible to everyone. So, interacting with you guys on this is such a, heartwarming experience for me. And Donna, we've never spoke before. So just to interact with you, it's great to hear about, what you're doing and how you're helping others and how you came into poker on your own. So I really enjoyed this.
Terrific. It's been so wonderful having you here. That's one of the things that I wanted this third Thursday talks to be with Women's Poker Association, is I wanted it to be a fireside chat. I wanted to be comfortable, and that was my intention. And let me share a screen and tell everyone who's hopefully going to be our speaker next month. It's going to be Amanda Botfield, and she's going to be talking about poker deal breakers, how to pick a good game, luck versus skill, the breaking point when skill surpasses luck, why position is critical, asking the right questions, are you value betting or bluffing, and telling a good story. I'm really looking forward to that. I think that will be really great for us to do that. She's got a book coming out about the girls in the poker game. I'm not sure the title of it yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's wonderful. I'm sure she'll be very informative, and just based on the bullet points, I feel like she's going to cover a lot of really, really good topics for you guys.
So what would you, any point, anything that you would like to leave for women, to something different that they might, something that they might change in their game that you think might be an asset to them?
I think if I were to just have one takeaway for women at this time, you should work on your self-awareness. And not necessarily just for women, but I think that's important for women because, like we talked about, our body language or how we project ourselves or the way we bet or the sizing that we bet or when we don't bet or when we're passive or we're too aggressive in the wrong spots. Focus on those things and understand that you need to be adaptable to how others perceive you. And that is the key to being really successful in poker.
Terrific. It's Kelly Minkin. Am I saying your last name correctly, Kelly?
Yes, Minkin, like Lincoln with an M.
Minkin, thank you. That helped me. Minkin, thank you so much. You have been a delight to be here today. I want to thank you very much. And, everyone's saying it's a great talk. Liked having you here. This is Donna Blevins, the big girl of poker. You can find me at biggirlpoker.com. You can find me on Twitter at Big Girl Poker. You can find me on Facebook /Big Girl Poker. Might as well stay with the brand. And I'm the moderator for Women's Poker Association, uniting women poker players worldwide. So, Minkin, thank you. Miss Minkin? Kelly, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Donna, for having me. It was a pleasure.
Take care. Bye-bye.